The types of sedimentary rock experiment is designed to help you look at what goes into making up the different types of sedimentary rock. And then you're going to compare the properties of that rock, how strong they are, how hard they are, through a series of tests. So before you go any further, you've got to think about what are the different types of sedimentary rock. When it comes to understanding the type of sedimentary rocks you're going to be making, it all depends on the size of grain that you're sticking together. So you're going to go into this in more detail in another video, but essentially you have sedimentary rocks that are made from very fine grains, think powdered clay, talcum powder sort of stuff. Those sort of fine grain ones go together to make shale and mudstone. As you go down, it just gets a little bit bigger. Then you have your sandstones, and then you have your bigger stones joined together to make these what we call conglomerate and breccia. The only difference between this one here, conglomerate and breccia, is that this one here, conglomerate, is smooth pebbles rocks, and that's because they've been run around in a stream or a riverbed and all their edges have come off, and breccia has got jagged edges because it's actually just broken down rock that hasn't been exposed to water, therefore it hasn't been smoothed down. So you're going to be joining together different types of sediments, just one, so we'll make just shale or just mud or just sand, so on and so forth, putting them together, and then we'll be testing them out to see what their properties are. Now here's an outline of how we're going to test those properties. We're going to do two types of tests. One that's called Mohs hardness scale, which I will often refer to as the scratch test, because you're going to be scratching the rocks and seeing whether they're harder or softer than what you're scratching them with. And the smash test, which is literally dropping the rocks off a balcony and looking at how far they splatter. So for every one of your different types of sedimentary rocks, they're going to be dried, and then you're going to drop them off a balcony and measure the spread or the smash of the different pieces and see if there's a difference between the different rock types. With Mohs hardness scale, it's just simply finding out what can scratch a rock and what can't. So we always start with the softest thing that possibly can be used to scratch rock, and then we go up. So essentially, if it makes a scratch, okay, if you can actually scratch it, then that means the rock is less hard than what you scratched it with. So if I scratch the rock with my fingernail and nothing happens, that means my fingernail has already been tested and found to have a hardness of 2.5. Therefore, if I can't scratch the rock with my fingernail, it's harder than 2.5. Here, we're going to bring some math into it. Look at this. If I can't scratch it with my fingernail, that means it's greater than 2.5. Then I'm going to go up to the next one. I'm going to try and scratch it with what they call a copper penny. Okay, it's just a piece of metal copper. If I can't scratch it with the copper, then that means that it is greater than in hardness 3.5, because copper has already measured in at 3.5. And you go so on and so forth. So say I tried to scratch it with the next one up, which in this case is a knife or a piece of glass, and it didn't scratch with the knife or the piece of glass. Did for these guys, didn't for the knife or piece of glass. That means it is less than 5.5, which is the hardness of glass. It's less than 5.5 in hardness. So that means I'd be able to take my rock and say it has a hardness of somewhere between, I can't say this for sure, it's greater than 3.5, but it's less than 5.5. And that's how we get our hardness, our measure of hardness. So you're going to use both the spread from the smash experiments and the results from your Mohs hardness scale test to analyze and record the properties of the rock you have made. There it is in a nutshell.